I just wanted to quickly demonstrate a lot of those things I was talking about with how we basically can get the ports clean and how all that stuff works, right? Now this is a flat port once again, you guys. So what I've done is I basically set this thing up. I rubbed grease from my ear, all that stuff on here and rubbed it on. One of the nice things about using grease from your ear or face or body, whatever, is that you get in the water and you still have it there to use. Like even if you're wet, if your hands are wet, it's okay. So I've got this housing all tight. If you look here, all my seals are nice and black around there, right? See how it's at one constant seam? Top, same thing, one constant seam. My port is on there, everything's good, camera's in there, great. So when I enter the ocean, I'm gonna enter the ocean backwards, usually, right? I'm trying to keep all of like the wind and stuff from hitting this because it's a flat port. I don't want water to get on it, right? And I get out here, finally get it wet, and I'm gonna go. See how the water's beating off that like this? See, it's working pretty well, but it could be better, right? So this is the method you want. You want that water, and it's never gonna be completely water-free, right? But if you find a nice clean spot of water, you wanna dip vertically and then pull up, okay? Now, if you can get out in the ocean with no droplets, shoot, by all means, you know? You only need to clean it off once, you know, a wave hits this thing, ideally, and you're like, oh, there's water droplets, so I'm gonna drip it down, I'm gonna dip it down, and I'm gonna pull this thing out. See that? See how I did it really smooth and slow? And if you go vertically, if you angle it, it's not gonna be as good. But if you go vertically, it comes up, there isn't a single droplet of water on there, right? The beauty of that is that now I can pick my camera up, I can just start shooting. You know, when you're shooting with a flat port, it's telephoto, so you're gonna wanna autofocus. So typically, you're gonna be looking through the viewfinder, you're gonna have your trigger button down here, and you might be like going like this and shooting, right? Boom, 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 right? So this is kind of the ideal method for using these things. Now, for these ports, one thing you wanna consider is that you always want to, as you're entering the water, as you're going out, you want to kind of protect it so that the less time you have to do this, go up and down, clean it, the easier it's going to be, the better it's going to be, right? Now, the reason that you have to shoot them dry is because you can't autofocus through a housing that has water on it. Sometimes the autofocus will catch on the water. Sometimes it looks a little blurry. It doesn't quite work, right? So that's one of the beauties of it. So once again, I can demonstrate. I'd love for you guys to try and demonstrate, see how it works and stuff. But essentially, like, you're out there swimming, you get stuff on the lens. Usually when you get stuff on the lens is when the wave crashes and you have whitewash. Like all the white sudsy stuff, that's what really sticks to it, okay? So say you're in the water, oh man, it's not beating off, it's not working. You just kind of do one of these sort of things. You rub this on there, your palm on there, whatever you need, right? Your nose. And you start to get it so it's kind of like almost like a grease layer, right? Something like that. It's always good to not shower the night before you go shoot in the water.
Now you do need a disclaimer.
Yeah, so now you have a little grease layer, so you dip it down. Usually it takes a little bit of time to like get this thing totally cleaned off, right? And it just kind of, there you go. So and keep in mind too, you guys, the surface that you're really shooting is really just right here. It's in the center, okay? You don't so much care about water on these surfaces, but it's good to get the whole thing clean. So it's always easier to get everything prepped when you're on the beach, right? You're on the beach, everything's dialed, it's good to go, you cleaned it off. But when you get in the water and you're in that emergency situation, just using your palm, rubbing some grease into there, works really well. You can dip it down. And it's kind of good to like let the water, move the water slowly with it, like let it sort of go down itself like this, like you're kind of, you're letting that water bring it down for you. You know what I'm saying? Because if you go like this, it just kind of beads up. But if you go slowly, it works really well. See, not a water droplet on there. Watch out for this wave. Here you go. If you guys want to try this out, go ahead. I'm gonna start to demonstrate this one. When you get in the water, put on your wrist strap, right? These are always helpful because the last thing you want to do, these things don't usually float. Sometimes they do if they have enough air in them, but typically not. There you go. Watch out. So yeah, the beauty of this is like, you get this thing on there, you want your wrist strap on. The last thing you want to do is be like walking out, slip, drop this, lose a couple $1,000s would be super brutal. So now I'm gonna be shooting wet. And one thing that's kind of a bummer is that this little plastic shield is on here. Usually I'd take this off and so you can expose the entire dome. You don't really need this. It can kind of help shield from the light, but it's not super crucial. I like to just have the total dome. So shooting wet, all right? Wide angles in here. The wide angle's locked off on manual focus, 3 feet to infinity. Everything beyond you is in focus. So what I'm gonna do, you guys, is I'm gonna take this thing, and you can't really prep this on land, because it doesn't make sense. You have to spit on it, lick it, coat that saliva around, and then dip it in the water, okay? So you're just kind of like this.
Yeah, you do need it this time.
Uh-huh. The sad thing is I've had a lot of video of shot of me doing this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of evenly coated, right? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be swimming out in the water. I'm gonna dip this thing in here. And see how it's a nice even coat?
Yeah.
Nothing's beating off. It's the exact opposite of what the other one. Right now there's a lot of sand on here because this is a really bad place to do this. Usually you want to be out in the cleaner water where it's less sandy, but it's a perfectly even coat. And one of the things that's nice is that these dome ports, they actually allow the water to kind of stay on there. They sort of do it for you. So if it's set up right, I'm just gonna get this a nice clean one. There you go, nice and clean, water staying on there. Usually it will stay on here for a couple of seconds and then it will start to you'll start to see water kind of coagulate and little spots starting to dry up right there. So one thing to keep in mind is when you're swimming around with one of these ports, it's meant to be wet, you can just let it sit in the water like this. Or let it like dangle off into the water, because all you're really doing is you're pulling it up for those last couple seconds when you want to shoot. And it's a lot different method, okay? You're not down there going like this. You're kind of just, it's good to go. Shoot, 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 shoot. About 10 seconds, and you got to dip it again, right? Because water's never going to stay on that surface perfectly clear the entire time. It's going to start to bead up. It's going to start to do different things, and you really want to make sure that you're just getting that first initial clean. And it's even good to like kind of move with the water so you're pushing all of that little debris off it. Right now, it's perfectly clear, right? So now, for example, if I was to go like this, or take some grease on my hand and start to coat this, you see how it's cutting the water away immediately, right? So this is what you don't want to have happen. You don't want to take a wide angle port and all of a sudden put your fingers on it, because your fingers have grease on them. And you don't want to take a flat port and accidentally spit on it, because it'll do the opposite. So this right now, now it's screwed up. See that? Super important, because with the way you get water droplets on your lens is when you're shooting wide and all of a sudden, in this type of port, and all of a sudden you have a dry spot.